Okay. Um, I started liking art at an early age, probably junior high. Before junior high, I had a friend who, if I did his art projects, he would do my history projects. So I knew it was a good thing. In junior high, I liked art a lot. Met Bob Remick, who was uh, an artist in town who had gone to the Minneapolis School of Art back in the 30s and knew about modern artists, and we could talk about art. I've always wanted to do it, enjoyed it, and it started back in high school. And it's been kind of an ongoing road process. Things have changed a lot. There have been different opportunities, different setbacks, things that I've seen. It's a learning process. I'm always trying to find a new way to look at ordinary things, to um, painting is a two-dimensional activity which doesn't necessarily lend itself well to words. So if I struggle a bit, I started, I don't know. I mean, I went to art school, came back to Windom, and started drawing. I had a quart of ink that I had purchased when I was in high school that I didn't use, and then when I came back to Windom after art school, I still had the quart of ink, and decided that it was something that I wanted to use, so I started doing these ink drawings, and the ink drawings eventually led to a drawing that was shouted out to me that it was a jungle drawing. At the time, I had a little roadside market and plant store, and I had a lot of plants and foliage around me, so the drawing screamed out jungle, and then I started doing these fantasy jungle drawings, and that would have been in the mid 70s. Um, and I worked on the jungle drawings for quite a while. I had borders on them. They would oftentimes have faces from magazines that I would draw, and I had developed a whole story of uh, what was going on in the drawings. The story goes that I was driving around in southwestern Minnesota and took a few too many left-hand turns, and all of a sudden I was lost and surrounded by a group of warriors who really wanted to behead me right there on the spot. And I said, no, please don't behead me. I'm an artist. Take me to the king and queen. So they took me to the king and queen of the jungle in southwestern Minnesota, and I did a portrait of the queen, which the king fortunately liked. And because the king liked the drawing of the queen, he made me official jungle photographer. My drawings to the residents of the jungle were photographs. So at that point, I started documenting things that were in the jungle. There's the ongoing Battle of Wallpaper, where when your lights go off at night, the warriors and shepherds will come out on your wallpaper and they start doing battle. There were beasts of beauty, beautiful, you know, people. A lot of the people wore Sansevieria hats, which related to the my little roadside market where I sold Sansevieria plants. So the characters ended up with little Sansevieria hats. Um, there also, towards the end, there were lips on sticks. There were pyre people who wore little pyre or fire caps. They were just a lot of fun. And those drawings were a combination of pen and ink, watercolor, and then I call it poor man's encaustic. I would take my wax color crayons and shave them on top of the drawings, and then I had a little Burns-O-Matic, and I would melt them onto the surface of the paper. And I did those drawings for, gosh, probably 7 or 8 years. They progressed, and the story kind of went on, and then I always had a hard time translating the ease and energy of the ink drawings into paintings, and that's kind of what I've been trying to do. I spent probably another 4 or 5 years working on large abstract paintings, which were layers of paint in abstract and different shapes, but they never really got what was going on in the jungle. And then I decided, to heck with this, I'm a trained serious artist, so I better do trained serious artwork. So one of the things that I think an artist does or can do is to make us more aware or look at what's around us differently in a new light. And so the jungle huts took me to the gray steel grain bins that populate our landscape. Every farm place has a little vignette of 3 or 4 or 5 grain bins of different sizes. I see those as almost like still life sort of objects. The shapes, I realize that with the painting I'm working with a 2-dimensional surface, so they become shapes for me. So and they translate down to a triangle over a rectangle. So I play with triangles over rectangles, and I paint over many times to get them set up the way they feel good. Another thing that it's important with painting to spend just the right amount of time on a painting. If you have an hour painting and you spend an hour and 2 minutes on it, those last 2 minutes will kill it. So you have to kind of balance it and know when it's done, ripe, ready to stop. Also, in my practice through the years, I've continued to draw and paint friends, people I know, as kind of a grounding back to the basic kind of, to sit down and do a portrait of somebody today, I don't think is any different than it was 500 years ago, to sit down with another person and to try to collect an image that hopefully at least resembles them. I like doing that because it's a little bit like this interview in that you sit down with somebody and you're 16, 18 inches apart, and you have permission to look at their face and to try to, I use 9-inch square masonite panels, but to try to get a resemblance. And also it allows me to to develop a conversation, to get to know somebody, to find out about them, to tell them about me. The paintings now are starting to have some of the pen and ink work on top of the acrylic painting. I also, and that's been kind of fun. The paintings are layers, so you can go over them. The pen and ink is a one-shot deal. When I draw, the ink is down and it's done. There's no erasing, there's no going back and redoing. With the drawing, it works best when I can let go, when I'm not consciously trying to figure out what I'm doing, when I let my hand do what it's supposed to do. If I start thinking too much about it, I probably can mess it up. When I don't think about it, it flows, I think fairly well most of the time. The paintings have images of grain bins. Also, recently, our landscape has had a lot of wind turbines, wind towers come in. So I've incorporated the three-petaled prairie, either flower or weed, depending on how you look at it, into the paintings. There also are the contours of the crops as they begin to come up. This time of year in the late summer, the round bales, the dots, have started to work their way into some of my paintings. Also, the round bales in the most recent paintings have actually turned into holes in the canvas, where there's another dimension underneath the painting. I like doing it. I mean, it's fun. It's an ongoing adventure. It's like completing a puzzle where there's no right answer, and there are many different possibilities. If you make this red, it changes everything. If you make it yellow, it changes everything. And you try to put together these different pieces on a two-dimensional surface.
You did go away from Windom to art school.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever consider staying away?
Be careful what you wish for, because you will not get it. When I graduated high school, Windom was going to be in my rearview mirror, period. It really was. I mean, I was accepted at Cooper Union, so I had a chance to go to New York. I didn't go to New York. I went to Minneapolis because they had a junior year abroad program. I was going to go to Holland my junior year. Well, they canceled the junior year abroad program in Holland the year that I was accepted to go there, because they were having trouble with some of the students weren't coming back. So, no, I did not want to come back to Windom. I mean, I thought, get me out of here. Now, I'm really glad I did. I mean, I graduated from art school, looked in the newspaper, couldn't find any ads for fine art painters at all. Came back to Windom. My parents had a grocery store. My father was pretty understanding, set me up in the little roadside market that I was telling you about, which had, I sold bedding plants, watermelons, apples, seasonal sort of things, Christmas trees in the winter, and it was on the highway. Gave me a lot of time to sit around and draw. And then my wife, Marilee, made the mistake of buying a plant from me, and we talked a little bit, and then a couple weeks later she brought me an ice cream cone, and she wanted to live in Windom, and I thought that was just fine. So we've been in Windom for all except for when I went away to art school, actually.
And you never got abroad?
Pardon?
You never got abroad?
I spent one summer in Edinburgh. 6 weeks at their Edinburgh Arts Festival.
So, what does it do to you to have so many impressions from one place?
I guess in retrospect, it's kind of neat because it takes a long time, a lifetime to get to know or do anything, and I'm fortunate in that, our roots here are so deep that they probably subconsciously influence everything that I do. And I like it here now. I mean, I guess I've liked it here for a long time. We have a nice little business, and I've had time to pursue my painting and drawing, and I think it's been important for my work that we be here in Windom, or this area, because there's a lot of depth, history. There are a lot of interesting people. It's nice.
How is that to be a business owner and an artist?
Just fine. Doesn't bother me. I should explain a big part of our business is flowers. We have a flower shop, and flowers are always beautiful. And I can put together, red flowers and orange flowers and yellow flowers and pink flowers, and there are different shapes and sizes and textures. So I don't feel abused having to go and make a pretty bouquet. And most people like getting flowers. They're happy when they get them. They look nice. So and Marilee likes the business end of it. I like the flowers. I prefer being here in the studio.
A few days ago, I interviewed Mari Harris at the Eatery, and she's committed to spending as much of her life in the Eatery as she can manage in Windom. Seems like you're committed to having a robust second life.
Yeah. I think, I've worked through, a lot of things and continue to want to pursue that elusive whatever it is that's always in the next painting.
How much time a day do you get to work on your painting and your artistic endeavors?
It really varies. I tend to work rapidly when I can. I can get a lot done in a short amount of time. Theoretically, I should work every day, and I think it would be different if I did, but I still have, some other responsibilities. I probably work, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours a week, maybe 10 hours a week, 15. I'm out here. I'm not always actually working, although it depends on what you call working. I have to read books, and I have to look at pictures, and I have to listen to music, and that's all working, isn't it? Oh, in that case,
Nice work if you can get it.
well, that's what I'm trying for.
I was struck by one twist in your story where you left jungle pictures behind because you decided you're serious artists who can't do jungles anymore. I'm curious about that step. What do you think, what responsibility do you think you have, and to whom, as a serious trained artist?
Well, I've since kind of doubled back on that decision because the drawings that are on the canvas are kind of going back to that jungle, but they're also incorporating more of the things around us. Responsibility, I think, again, it gets back to hopefully getting people to see and appreciate what's around them differently, or to come to notice, something that's around them and in a different way, as being something worth seeing. There was a quote, I think it was Frank Golke, and the gist of it is, bored is not paying attention. If you pay attention, you'll never be bored.
So your role in the community is to keep your fellow citizens of Windom from being bored?
No. I'm not sure what my role in the community is. I suppose to entertain them a bit with the drawings and paintings.
Do you feel like you fit?
Yes and no. I think in a lot of ways, part of what's happened, part of my life has been, I've been able to fit perhaps a little too well. If I hadn't been able to fit quite as well, I might have, I don't know, done things differently.
In what way do you say fitting too well?
Adapting to what's expected of you, as opposed to being obstinate and I'm not going to adapt to that, I'm going to do this. So I tended to be a little bit of a chicken.
Any regrets that you didn't do revolutionary art in Windom?
No. I really have no regrets. I don't. I mean, I have junctures that I look back at that, if I'd gone to New York, what may or may not have happened, but I don't dwell on those. I'm, maybe a little too well satisfied, if anything. I mean, I like where I am, I like what I do.
I'm fascinated by that jungle period early on. It seems to be a convergence of a really wild sort of literary imagination, or kind of Alice in Wonderland. Let's play croquet with live flamingos kind of impulse and visual arts. Can you say a little bit about the frame of mind in which the jungle pictures came about?
The jungle pictures started with the ink and playing with the ink and being surrounded by all the plants in the little roadside market, which was probably about the size of this studio. And I just had a lot of fun with it. And I that part is still there. A couple years ago, I started doing a few drawings that related back to that, and it hasn't left me. Maybe I don't have to be quite so serious anymore.
Have you ever thought of writing a story? The Wallpaper Wars, the Whips on Sticks. I mean, it sounds like a children's book to die for.
I need help with it. I have trouble spelling.
But I mean, an illustrated book in which the story would actually come in with the pictures.
Yeah, I have. I need help with that. I mean, I at one point was talking with a friend about, perhaps doing something like that.
So when you were doing the jungle stuff, there was a narrative kind of sneaking around behind the images or coming out, or is there a narrative for these grain bin pictures and the windmill pictures, and are there stories behind that?
No.
This is just
It's
the
just
shapes.
Two-dimensional, shapes. But perhaps a little more, I don't know, reflective maybe?
I'm just curious about that impulse that, what else might be in that idea that, well, when I start doing grain bins, I'm in serious territory. What the seriousness of that's all about. And they're very striking images.
They're perhaps a little more formal. Yeah. It's a more formal, two-dimensional, whereas the drawings are, probably more like comic books or that sort of thing.
Do you see yourself as talking to artists in the cities, artists in Iowa? I mean, are you in that kind of a dialogue in the things you do?
Talking with them physically,
physically,
or
but also, in the kind of thing you do. I mean, you obviously collect other artists' stuff. You've seen other artists' stuff. Is there a kind of visual dialogue going on?
I think so. I hope so. I think that. I think there is.
And what's that like? I mean, who are you talking to, and what are you trying to say in that context?
Well, I don't know that I'm actually talking to too many other artists, but I'm looking at a lot of other artists and looking at the shapes that they use, the way they put it to the canvas, what they're doing. And I think that, again, having lived here so long, and they're kind of like landscapes, but defining the landscape not as a landscape, but by what we as man put on the landscape. With the paintings.
Is there a critical element in that for you? mean, is there a protest?
I don't. No, I don't think so. I think it's just, I see these little groupings of bins everywhere I drive around here. And then my imagination does cut loose a little bit, and I think that there's another culture that lives in them that we're not aware of. And they have little tunnels going back and forth. And
so you're basically at peace with the idea of human beings in this landscape doing the stuff they're doing.
I'm not sure. I mean, it's something that has been going on for a long time, and the harvest and putting it in the grain bins. The grain bins also are a little bit of a symbol of affluence. If you have 8 grain bins full of corn. And we're an agricultural area.
And the windmills?
And the windmills. I don't know if it's up to me to be Don Quixote or not.
But you're less easy with the windmills.
I'm probably a little skeptical. I mean, I like the idea. I think if we can find a means to provide us with some of the energy that we're using, that's there. I don't mind it.
Would you think that your primary role is in painting this area is sort of to teach people how to see it, maybe, or
Just to get them to be more aware of it. I mean, I don't profess to teach them how to see, but if they look at a grouping of grain bins differently after they've seen my paintings, I think then I've had some influence.
It's always a mysterious thing how an artist comes to be. I mean, lots of people draw or paint a little bit and they don't get the bug, and then there are people who do what you've done, explodes in many dimensions. One thing you talked about was your early time in Windom and those early influences. I'm curious in what way it was helpful to live here. Give us any help in thinking about how somebody gets started as an artist.
I think I saw it as a way out, and it turned out to be a way in.
It was a way to get out of town.
Yeah, and to be able to do what I wanted to do, but it turned out to work, kind of the opposite, which was all right.
Do you think there's a a rest of your lifetime worth of subjects here? Can you
Oh,
see
yeah.
yourself kind of continuing the projects you're doing here?
I think so, yeah. I never seem to get bored.
That's the striking thing. You don't. You really are never bored?
No. Not in my work, I'm not.
Uh-huh. It's a powerful ad for whatever it is that engagement with visual arts does.
Well, and see, I guess I would wish that for anybody in what they do. You know, if they can find something that they like to do and then pursue it and do it. And if it's something that you enjoy doing, the doors keep opening. You know, before you'd alluded to going back into doors, and doors kind of open with art and they close with art, and you're always trying to go through and see what's on the other side of the next door. And you bring a little bit along with you, and you leave a little bit behind. One thing about, you know, being here and talking with you a little bit is there haven't been a lot of people in the area to talk about art with. You know, that's perhaps one of the drawbacks of living out here. But I think it's more than compensated for by the lack of other things to do, so you need to create your own entertainment. And I would hope that, you know, my work would, you know, at least have a bit of a regional interest.
So part of the value of being out here is that you don't get distracted from doing that 10 hours a week.
Right, yeah. And a bunch of the temptations are gone. But then you miss, you know, the opportunity to you know, see go to an opening or see a show of artwork. It's not as accessible.
Do you get to the Twin Cities very much?
Not a lot, some. We're usually day trippers, so it's early in the morning and it's getting to be earlier at night that we get back.
Nice. So you kind of keep up with what's happening in the galleries there a little bit?
A little bit.
Is it hard to sell stuff? I mean,
Occasionally I sell some pieces. It's not the primary objective. You know, I'm not trying to make something that will sell, but I do sell some.
and how do you market? I mean, how do you get your stuff out?
I've had some shows and friends. I'm not real internet savvy, so I don't have a website or that sort of thing.
Would you like that? I mean, would that be an addition to have your stuff, you know, to have a marketing arm?
You know, I think it would be nice. Yeah.
It's not like you want to hold on to everything you've produced.
No. My wife does.
Nice. Nice. But you'd be willing to sell a lot more.
I do part with some, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean my sort of goal or dream would be to, live here in Windom and sell my paintings in Chicago. That'd be nice work if I could get it.
And that would be nice, partly to get your stuff out, and partly because it would give you some income.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a combination. I mean, because it's expensive to put this stuff together too.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't have to be, but because you can work with just about anything.
Well, I really wonder, suppose the MacArthur Foundation discovers you someday and drops, $250,000 on you with no expectations that you do anything with it. So you have sort of vastly increased resources.
Mm-hmm.
Would things change much?
I have a hat that says "Protect me from what I want."
Mm-hmm. Yes, I noticed that.
Which is it Barbara Kruger, the artist? Yeah, that would change things. I mean, I would fear a little bit something like that because I would wonder, did I receive that because of this? Should I be doing more of these? Or did I receive it because of that? Should I be doing more of that? Whereas, if the MacArthur people are watching, you can send a check. It would be all right.
Uh-huh. Well, this is part of the bat attempts to do right by its guests. But, with all due respect to protect me from what I want, what would you do if you had, would you travel? Would you work more than 10 hours a week if you could farm out the Hallmark business?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I would definitely. This would be it. I mean, I would like to have the chance to find out how long I could actually do this without going nuts. Because no matter what you do need some distraction.
Mm-hmm.
But to just be able to do this all the time, I think it'd be real nice. And then, maybe go to New York or Chicago or LA once in a while.
Right. Well, that's kind of the other question. With unlimited resources, do you think you'd still maintain strong tie to Windom? If you could live in Paris, if you could live in New York, if you could live in Holland, or divide your
Oh
time.
gosh, I'm so far into this. I think I'd have a hard time changing now.
Uh-huh.
I mean, early on, yeah, I wanted in the rearview mirror, and now, I've got this. Yeah, I think I would stay here and keep doing this. I have 2 studios and a storage room, and I'd like to build another studio, and but I like it here. Merely has a hard time getting me to leave. Because we're in the public with our business, I think I enjoy the solitude of the studio. I mean, painting is a solitary art. I mean, it's primarily, you're alone in the studio, slugging it out, or, whatever, watching, making things happen.
have a friend was trying to interest in buying my mother's place once upon a time. Took her out to see this idyllic farmstead near Litchfield, Minnesota. And her response was, I don't think I could live where I didn't have people like me. There was also a fear that she might get lynched. She was a creative writer,
Mm-hmm.
now a fine potter, musician, and multiply artistically engaged. And she felt that she had to be very careful about where she lived for her sanity and maybe a little bit even for her safety.
Mm-hmm.
So I take it the community gives you what you need. There's the conversations you have with people, the neighbors give you what you need to kind of stay sane.
I just feel real grounded here. We've been here for almost ever so far.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of the opposite. I think I would be a little bit afraid to be around too many people who were like me. I might go a little wild.
Those crazy Capote parties in New York.
Well,
What is that fear like? I mean, what? In what way are you afraid of being in a community of extremely imaginative artists with multiple interests?
oh gosh. Perhaps a fear of not being imaginative enough. I mean, not, and I think in that level you can't ride on yesterday's accomplishment or whatever. I mean, I don't know.
So your fear would be that they push you faster than you want to be pushed, or than you want to go, or to innovate where you want to stay put and do another decade of
Grain bins?
grain bins.
Yeah. I don't know where to go from here. I mean, I like the mine, or what I've been pulling out of here. I think it makes sense. I think it's different. It is what it is.
I'm just so amazed, driving by these houses along the lake that kind of all look sort of alike. And you walk into here and you've got decades of interesting work in many dimensions and multiple interests. Makes a person wonder what's hiding behind the other doors in Windom or in towns like this, and how many really alive projects there are.
I think there are a lot. I mean, I think, our small communities and the people in them, are amazing.
Have you met other artists?
Mm-hmm.
Here?
Yep. I have other artists that are friends, and we never really talk about art, but we party and look at each other's art.
You mentioned your own early, kind of relationship with an artist. Have you been able to mentor folks, young folks along here now?
I think a little bit. Yeah. I'm always, I think, willing to help or interested in helping or talking to people about what they want to do. I go to the alternative school and paint portraits and talk to the kids there and enjoy that. And hopefully I'm helpful. The kind of the main thing that I would want to impart to anybody is to find something you like to do and do it. And no matter what it is, once you allow it to sort of grab your interest, it will lead you. It will lead you to the next book about how to do this, or it will lead you to the next person who will help you to gain some expertise in what you need to know to get on to the next step. And if you enjoy it, then it's fun. You know, it's not, I need to learn this, or I need to learn that, or I have to do this. It's like, what's coming next?
Do you have non-artistic interests?
What's a non-art? Maybe not. If I have to ask, what's a non-art?
Well, I just mean, whether, I'm just asking whether your interest in painting and drawing has led you into other territory.
Yeah, I think so.
Kind of, sort of, how does a life expand from one central activity or passion outward over time?
I like looking at other people's artwork and experiencing it.
Music, obviously.
Music and reading. I like to read a lot. And then the authors that I read tell me that there's a vast difference between reading about cutting your finger and cutting your finger.
Mm-hmm.
So I sort of play with that.
How so?
Pardon?
How so?
I still haven't been able to give up reading,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to living the experience. And painting is kind of a step back from the living of the experience also, as is drawing. I mean, there's symbols.
It's the Lady of Shalott image, the person who lives forever so long she only sees in the mirror.
Oh,
Yes. Do you have a temptation to go out and cut your finger? I mean, to leave
No.
the paintings behind, leave the images behind, and go out and experience the life that's kind of represented there?
You know, I think we all have wishes to try something.
Mm-hmm. I suppose that gets back to the hat. Protect us from the things
What
we
we
wish
want,
for.
yeah.
So, to some extent, free painting is an alternative to living.
You know, that sounds sad. Yeah. Or it's another, it's a way for me to live within something else.
Sort of living privately.
Yeah.
And it sounds like the jungle pictures were a level more your own world. than the things you've done recently, the more formal things.
They were a lot of fun. These are fun. They're different. And like I say, I'm trying to combine them still.
Yeah. It's just so wonderful to see so much life in one place.
Well,
So many dimensions. People have told me from various places, this is a guy you have to talk to. If you're going to talk about Windom and its place, this is a guy you have to meet. I see exactly why.
well, I obviously am not terribly good with words, so
You don't need to be good with words.
hopefully
You
the
can paint
paintings, say something.
Well, one direction we were talking about it in the little tour you gave us of stuff, and that's this move to painting like township maps,
Mm-hmm.
and also integrating, say, township map paintings into canvases with other things. That seems to be a new element. Could you say a little bit about what's going on there?
They're just dividing a square canvas into 36 squares, and then going to the plat book and seeing how the space is divided in a plat book and translating it into different colors, playing with the colors. It's something that's, I think it's kind of fun. It's another abstract way that we define the space that we live in, as a flat map. I'm working with paintings that are two-dimensional, they're flat. The bins and the wind turbines that I paint are flat. I mean, I'm not trying to make my surface into an illusion of a third dimension. They're flat paintings on flat canvas, and the patterns are, to me, interesting. So it's another two-dimensional abstract of our three-dimensional world.